Well, hello, ladies and weebs. What's up? What's up, y'all? Fuck, damn it, dude, this goddamn Byobu. Anyway, how y'all doing? Good, I hope. So this one is not the difficulty. This is, does it teach you well? Now, this is kind of an interesting one because unlike difficulty, which has like some metrics of like, oh, there's a lot of kanji density, oh, there's furigana, that type of thing, right? A lot of how well does it teach you is very much dependent upon your skill level as well as what your goals are. Like voice acting for something, for example, is something that's important if you are trying to learn more pronunciation and stuff like that, right? But if your goal is just reading for whatever reason, it's kind of not that valuable. In general, I think that voice acting is just a net positive because most of the games that have voice acting also have a lot of reading, so you're not like missing out on that. But these are just some of the things too. And also, like, how does the game test you? I think that's like kind of a good other category of like, how does it push you in different ways? Oh yeah. This is a pretty interesting one. So like, how much is the language itself being a barrier to progress? Like we mentioned, Obra Dinn, for example, like not knowing the language is a massive barrier. Whereas Elden Ring, who gives a fuck, right? That game's not teaching you shit. Like, it's not teaching you goddamn anything. So here's the thing, we ranked Ace Attorney as A, and also these dots correspond to like approximations of how difficult the Japanese is within the game, which is based off of the previous difficulty rating that I created. You'll notice that some of them have 2 dots. We'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, let's talk Disco Elysium. So one of the reasons actually why I wanted to do this list is because of Disco Elysium. Because I feel like I want to make sure that it's given like a fair shake. And when we were talking about Disco Elysium's difficulty, like, I think it could be great as like a learning tool. I think we've included in here multiple language opportunity. It's one of the like few games where you have just such an easy way to toggle the languages from English to whatever you want, right? And so I think it's really just a matter of how good are you at Japanese, right? It's like the main thing. And I think that if you're already familiar with the game and you're using it as a learning tool specifically, not necessarily just to play the game, because I think that like a lot of it gets very difficult if you're trying to like play the game on a first time playthrough and like have fun with it and whatnot. But if you're using it to learn, I think Disco Elysium is actually really good, potentially. It seems like there's a lot of like topic variety. You'll encounter a lot of words that you probably won't encounter much elsewhere, but there's a big vocabulary that you could potentially learn from Disco. I'm gonna put this in the A category. I think that it's hard, but I think that it's good. It's a good kind of hard. Disco Elysium gets an A from me for teaching you Japanese. Okay, let's carry on. Elden Ring. You know what we need to do actually here? What does this button do? This is the don't teach you shit tier. And this is exactly where Elden Ring is going. Elden Ring does not teach you any Japanese. In like every single metric that we've established here, it fails at every turn. Topic variety is super limited. It's like limited, well, it's limited to Elden Ring stuff, which half the time is going to give you made up bullshit words that aren't real words, right? And are like impossible to read. Repetition of word pool, I guess there's a fair amount of that if you're like reading stuff, but only if you're reading things, right? Voice acting, if you play this game in Japanese, the voice acting is in English, so get fucked. Furigana, no. Dialogue log, hell no. Pausability, no. You can't even pause the dialogue, right? You can skip the dialogue, but if you pause the game, like, stuff in the world keeps happening around you. So, dude, it fails even on that. Font? Nah. Multiple language opportunities? Yeah, just English with the voice acting. How does it test you? Reputation, whatever. Language being a barrier to progress? Not at all. You don't need any language to play through the game. So yeah. Doesn't teach you shit tier. Probably a better game for Japanese to practice in English. Yeah, for sure. At least if you're wanting to learn like British English, because like all the actors are British. But yeah, I agree with that. If you wanted to listen to some English, yeah, I know. I almost said it. I almost said it. Final Fantasy 16. This one, we were playing it in Japanese. I don't know. This feels like a C tier. I don't even really remember it that well, I'll be honest. But from what I do remember, the Japanese was pretty hard. And yeah, I like C tier. Okay. Moving on. Final Fantasy VI. I think that this is a good one. Like, I think that it's in this, like, B tier, along with, like, Musashi and Crooked Weeb, for a couple of reasons. Topic variety isn't great, which is why it's not going to go any higher than B, but and the font isn't great. Those are the things really setting it back. And the other thing I would say is setting it back too is that it's not great for teaching you kanji, because there's not a lot of kanji in it because it's an older game and they didn't have as much kanji in older games. So that's kind of like a bit of a downside, but if you're, depending on your level, that might be fine for you, right? You're just trying to learn words and stuff like that, and you will see kanji, for sure. You'll see a lot of kanji. It's just that it does a lot of that, like, thing where half of the word is in hiragana, and then, like, half of it is not. The one I played added kanji in some places. That's true. I was playing the T hack, which was created by a Japanese person, and so it added some kanji, and it also added a lot of dialogue that had kanji in it as well. But yeah, good point. Thanks for bringing that up. So the original might even be a bit less kanji, but I think that's still fine depending on your level, right? Which we're kind of trying to say, like, we're trying to, like, contextualize it with, like, if it's within your level, then it's pretty good. I think the main thing is that, like, topic variety is what's going to keep it going from higher. And there's no voice acting too, but I mean, you shouldn't expect that out of an older game like that, probably. The topic variety, I will say that if you're interested in playing more JRPGs, it's going to be great, because you're going to learn a lot of words that are JRPG related, like tatakal, sobi, equipment, fight, that type of shit. So it's good for that. But yeah, that I think that's why it's probably a B tier. Okay, Final Fantasy X. I think Final Fantasy X suffers from some similar issues. Topic variety is a bit higher. I'm gonna put it like... Oh, it also has voice acting though too. Okay, I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna put it... I think it doesn't have some of the, like, convenience features of these other ones, of, like, wide variety of topics. The voice acting though is pretty good though. Like, that's pretty great actually. It feels like it should be a bit higher than these other ones. And actually, maybe actually no, if I put Chrono Trigger here, I think FF6 should be with Chrono Trigger. I like this a lot better. I think this is a lot better for teaching you Japanese. I think Final Fantasy VI is a C, is good. Musashi has voice acting and a lot of idioms. which is frustrating when you're trying to learn just because you're like, God damn, another idiom, but like it's good to learn. Also, I forgot all those idioms that we learned. But hey. Okay, Final Fantasy X-2. In my brain, Final Fantasy X-2 is a lot shorter of a game than Final Fantasy X. There's a lot of extra stuff you can do in X-2, but like so much of it is gameplay, not like story or words. Like there's big, massive extra dungeons and stuff that you can do, but like it's not necessarily Japanese focused. A lot of it's like mini games and that kind of stuff. So I think that putting it into B tier is good. But I think it's above these ones because the voice acting, I think, does push it into B tier. Okay. Hades. Outstanding game. I don't think it's like great for learning Japanese. I think it's better just if you want to play Hades. Like I think like I think that there is like potentially a lot of dialogue in Hades, like a surprisingly large amount of dialogue in Hades with all like the characters and stuff. God damn, it's just such a good game. I think for Japanese learning though, I'd put it at like a C or a D. Topic variety isn't huge, and also from what I remember, so much of the dialogue is like kind of archaic-y sounding, which could just be like I'm trying to see. The thing with like difficulty is that like if you're really good, maybe you want to just study like more archaic stuff, you know? But like I wouldn't say that it's like things you're gonna really use practically unless you're trying to read like literature. I guess if that's your goal, that's fine. That's fine. We'll keep it C tier. Now we're getting to something good. Katana Zero. This is a good one. You'll notice that it has 2 dots on it. I put 2 dots, and that's because Katana Zero employs this metric much more than like many of these other games. Because the dialogue, if you don't cheese the dialogue by pausing it like I did, then this is like a game that will test you. Like you could replay this game multiple times, which you just, you know, it's fun. So like that's not a problem. But you could replay it multiple times trying to, and like really keep yourself like strict to where you're not pausing the game, because the audio or the dialogue progresses without you. Like it's on a timer, and you can make split-second decisions in responses, or if you want to interrupt certain people or whoever, whatever, you know? And so this could be an excellent game if you want to push your reading skills to like the next level of like building speed, right? I think it potentially has a ton of value with that. And that's why it has 2 dots, because if you cheese it, the game's difficulty is, I think, a yellow. It's like upper intermediate, I think. But if you are really playing the game as intended, without pausing the game to read the dialogue and just going with it as fast as you can, it's hella hard. It's a totally different type of challenge. One that I think that on this channel in particular, maybe we don't practice enough. Like maybe we don't practice that kind of putting ourselves through the ringer as well as or as much as we should. But it's a different kind of challenge for sure. So I think that this is an S. I think that if you're trying to find a game that's going to teach you how to read faster, I feel like there's not really as many options as this, right? Like this is just perfect because it's going to do it for you, you know? And because you can select different options that'll go down different kind of dialogue trees, every time you replay the game, you have opportunity to test yourself in different ways. Like, that's so unique. You don't get that out of games that often. I think that's pretty incredible. So yeah, it's top of S tier, and I'm not gonna lie, it might stay up there. It might just stay right up there the whole time. And the soundtrack is goated, dude. And the soundtrack is goated. And the game is so fucking fun to play. It's so sick. Like, Katana Zero is just awesome. Okay. Kuon. Kuon is very hard. And the topic variety is very limited. This is going to be like a D or a C. I think it has voice acting. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put it in B tier. I mean, in the end, I think most of these games are going to end up being in B or C. But I think this is a pretty good one for B. If you want to like learn, if your like goal is, you're like, man, I really want to watch like Kurosawa movies and like Seven Samurai, and I want stuff that's like that, you know, more feudal Japan era, and get kind of the more that kind of dialogue, grammar constructions, words like tsuzura, which is a wicker laundry hamper used in feudal Japan. Tsuzura. I think it's good for that. And also, one thing that is really good about this game is the repetition. There is so much, like, the dialogue topic variety, and we talked about this too, how like these two categories are kind of like potentially they defeat themselves, because like you want repetition of word pool, like that is a benefit. But then also, it is good if you can play a game and have opportunity to learn a wide variety of words. Potentially that's good. I might value like the repetition more personally, but I think there is value of playing a game where you can encounter a lot of different, wide word pool as well. Especially if you're fucking broke, you know? But I think that it's good on the repetition. For sure. Repetition because you play the game twice. Yeah, you play the game twice. So there you go. I think B is a good place for it. There's dialogue audio as well. Okay. Kukiyomi. Kukiyomi, this is like Katana Zero, but with like barely any word pool. Also, dude, I replayed this on my own. I remember thinking that the dialogue moved very quickly in English, but dude, it moves so fast. I mean, it's the same tempo in Japanese, but it's just like the dialogue moves faster than Katana Zero, like quite a bit faster, which is part of the point, but that does make it hard. However, there's like barely any actual Japanese you can learn from it, which is why, you know what? It does what like Katana Zero does with like that unique element of the dialogue progresses without you, and you can't even cheese this one. But like there's so little dialogue or like words to learn. It's not going to test you in that much variety of ways. Also, like there's replay value, but a lot of the scenarios are the same that you're replaying every time. So like there's not that much variety that you get even in that challenge. Or in that aspect. So I think it belongs in the C tier. I'm actually gonna put the end of the C tier, because this actually, Katana Zero has a lot of variety and there's a lot more replay value and just Japanese value. Okay, Lies of Piss. I'm gonna put this in the Elden Ring tier of doesn't teach you shit about Japanese. Mostly because it's a Souls-like, right? It follows the same formula as Dark Souls, Elden Ring type of thing. There's more coherent story in this one. So actually, I'm gonna put it ahead. You know, it's better, but there's still like a lot of made up words. There's a lot more exposition though, and actual like storytelling. And the storytelling is straightforward. Like, you know what's going on. It's not hidden in mystery. It actually does. There is like a plot to follow, and there's a plot. It's not just lore, you know. There's an actual plot that you're following, not just like lore acquiring, you know what I mean? I think that's enough to bump it up to D, I think. But it does have English voice acting. There's no Japanese. There might be Korean because it's a Korean game, but there's no Japanese. Yeah, I think D, but less than Cuphead. Which might be a little unfair, but we'll leave it there. Okay, Night Delivery. I think Night Delivery is very good at what it does. And this is because it's short. I think that the fact that Night Delivery is short, if you can replay it multiple times and get that repetition if you want, it's fun, you know, it's cool. There might be, on a second playthrough, you know, some of the novelty of a horror game is lost, but there are, I think, multiple endings to the game. So it kind of already does encourage you to replay it. And since it's short, you get that repetition, you learn those words, and you're done, you know? I think that's all good. You're not getting a wide variety of words, though. We'll put it in B tier. We'll put it here. Maybe Coolin should be higher. Actually, I think Crooked Man should be lower. Just because these have voice acting. Yeah. Okay. Return of the Obra Dinn. Let's go over to this criteria list real quick. I want you to draw your attention to how does this game test you? As well as language being a barrier to progress. Now this is definitely this game tested our friendship, dude, for real. This game tested a lot of things. You get all sorts of tests. This game is just one giant test. For real. And it's great. It's a fantastic game. And it does great at testing you. I want to say that the main thing that I think is like a drawback of this is that the word pool is so niche. It's so niche. I don't remember a single one of those words that we learned. I remember 0 of them. Like fucking whatever, like crow's mastman mate, whatever. I don't remember it. Topman, yeah. Words literally not in the dictionary. Yeah, literally not in the dictionary. Not in the dictionary. Super specific, niche. Just like you have to have very, very specific goals. I mean, your goal basically has to be to beat Obra Dinn. Like that's what your language goal has to be in order to use this as a study tool. Archaic shit, 19th. I know, right? Like we're fucking reading Moby Dick over here. I guess maybe if you want to read Moby Dick, then like that's a good one. Osatsu? Yeah, beating to death. Dude, that's actually a good point. There was also like drowning to death, which I don't remember. But there was like cutting or slicing to death. Pierced, I think, was another category, right? Toshi, death from cold. Death from cold, yeah. Also, the fucking font sucks. I just remembered that too. The font sucks. And as we discussed before, at least I am of the opinion that reading bullshit font I don't think is like necessarily good at teaching you Japanese. I think it's more just an exercise in tedium. Mostly because like I think that the ways that a lot of these difficult fonts are hard are not necessarily transferable to like helping you read other types of fonts that are also hard. Like a lot of times they just do different things that make them annoying to read. So like, not all, I mean, there's probably some overlap there, but like, I don't think it's enough to like justify trying to read in hard fonts, like as a goal, you know, or a training thing. Okay. So Obra Dinn potentially, if it was like a game, if there was a game that like was intending on teaching you Japanese and it did it in the style of Obra Dinn, that would be so fucking sick. That'd be so sick. And it would like bump up this all the way to S. At least A, I think. But because what you're learning from Obra Dinn is not really applicable, I'm putting it in D tier. I don't think that like the testing of the game is enough as far as teaching you the language, you know? Okay, Octopath Traveler 2. This is a great one. I did this on my own. I played this game on my own. There's a wide variety of words that you can learn, from like Steam Engine to all sorts of different stuff. There's also a lot of voice acting in the game, and there's a lot of repetition because the way that the game is structured is there's 8 different characters that all have their own story. Octopath, right? And within each chapter, like character's chapter, there's a lot of the same word pool that gets repeated over and over again. So what that means is that as you're playing the different chapters and then you're returning to those characters, because you don't play them all at once. I mean, you could, but like the idea is that you go around playing each one, and then they're kind of like not level locked, but there's like recommended levels that you play each chapter. So you return to those previous characters to play the more advanced chapters. And so it's like built-in repetition, right? It's like built-in repetition for you to review those words. If the word pool was wider, I might bump it up to S, but I think I will put it top of A because I think that's really useful. The fact that it's structured in that way, I think it encourages learning. Moi, great game. I really liked it. That whale section was the low point, but other than that, fantastic. Lots of dialogue, a lot of repetition. Great game, cringe font. Dude, yes. I almost forgot about the font. Yeah. Cringe as fuck font. That's for sure. That's a point against it. But overall, like, I feel like it might be good in a B tier. I feel alright putting it in... Dude, I'm gonna put it in C. Top of C because of the font. Because of the font. It goes there. Goes there. Okay, now on to the game that every time I think about, I get a little emotional. Outer Wilds. It's that good. I think that Outer Wilds is a hard game dialogue-wise and like vocab-wise, but I've talked about this before a little bit. I think it's actually pretty fantastic for learning that dialogue or that word pool. The word pool is not super expansive, but with the way the game is structured, you get to read similar pieces of dialogue or like pieces of information are scattered all over, and a lot of them align with each other and are about similar topics. And so if you're just sort of exploring and finding naturally going through the game, you'll get a lot of that repetition that will come back over time, that spaced repetition syndrome, right? And so I think that it doesn't necessarily teach you about a lot of different topics, but I think the topics it teaches you about are pretty great, or well executed. It's not intended to be that way, but like, it ends up being that way. So I think I would put it just behind Octopath Traveler. It just doesn't have as wide of a word pool, but like it does great at teaching it to you, for sure. I'm kind of rethinking Ace Attorney's placement right now. It feels like a lot of the things I've said that are good about, I mean, I think mostly it's just that the variety. Yeah, and technically this is 3 games in one. I haven't even gotten to 2 of them. So I think there's opportunity. You can really get your money's worth out of this. Like, yeah, okay, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. Since this is the trilogy, the version I have is the full trilogy. So we'll give it a little bit of a bump up because of that. All right. P4. P4, I think, has a lot of the same benefits as Octopath Traveler 2, but and also has voice acting like Octopath Traveler 2 does. I think the one thing that it has that's better, though, is it has a lot of more casual, natural Japanese that's more modern, right? Like modern, casual ways of speaking. Compared to Octopath Traveler 2, which is a JRPG, you know, and like set in like a fantasy world, you know, type of thing, I think that is enough to bump it up there. In fact, because of the voice acting, I'm going to put it ahead of Ace Attorney. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Speaking of money's worth, though, you could play that game for a whole year. At least. At least. Dude, I didn't even do like 90% of the side quests either. It's crazy. How many more have we got? 1, 2, we've got like 14 more or something. We can do this. I'm gonna power through some of these. And here's 2 that I'm gonna power through because they are basically the same, they get the same score. So the thing that separates these 2 games from, I think, pretty much all of the others is that these are the only games I've played that have Furigana. Like, consistently everywhere, Furigana is just all over the place. Now, as a learning tool, I think that if you're really intending, because the thing that I complain about all the time is that, like, when there's Furigana, I have a tendency to not look at the kanji and not read it and kind of ignore it. And I think that's still an issue, but I think that if you're actually trying to, like, learn, you know, and actually, you know, like, chanto benkyou suru, you're really, like, studying properly, unlike what I do on stream, then I think it could be very beneficial. So if there was voice acting, I'd probably put them in. Although, let me ask you guys. So I think, like, how do you feel about Furigana in the games that you've played? Like, it also makes it useful for studying because you can look up words a lot easier, which makes it a lot less frustrating. So, like, what's your experience been? Good for words you don't know, bad for words you should know. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I think quantity is far more important than quality, so it doesn't matter that much in the long term. Interesting. So in the sense, as long as you're getting, like, really lots of Japanese, you're getting your reps in of Japanese, you know, that's going to benefit you more. Furigana's a big plus for you. You lose patience with kanji, you need to punch in the radicals or whatever multiple times. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and I think that as far as good for teaching goes, I've talked about motivation before. Maybe that should have been a category here. Like, how does it encourage motivation? I'm just gonna throw it here because I think Furigana is very helpful for that, because it can totally get very, very frustrating when you feel like it's not progressing, you know? Then again, I mean, I know that, like, the retort is, well, get good, scrub, type of thing, but, like, I'm a scrub, man, like, I'm a scrub, and I get annoyed if I have to keep looking up words, like, you know, I totally feel that. I totally feel that. This stream was a lot different before, like, when I was drawing everything and punching in radicals and stuff like that. Also about understanding sentences more than just learning words. You still get that practice. That's true. That's true. I sometimes kind of forget about that because, like, in general, I don't have to think about the grammar so much when I'm like every now and then I'll come across a sentence where I'm like, wow, I really didn't understand the grammar. But like, for the most part, it's just tango for me, mostly. And so that's a good point though. Like, if you're still working on grammar principles and actively practicing that, then yeah, furigana is great for that, because you can keep things rolling and not get bogged down by kanji. God damn, man, this is really making me think that there's a lot of benefits. Playing a game more interested in learning vocabulary than kanji, use other things for kanji. That's an interesting point. I can see that. But then again, like, playing a game or something, or like reading a book or whatever, that's like, I guess that's where you put your kanji to the test to some degree, right? Like, you might learn some kanji stuff outside of there, but then maybe put it to the test. Or maybe you're going the other route, like, where you're just mixing it. You're learning kanji as you're learning vocab, and you're learning it as you are immersing yourself. I think that as far as this list goes, I think they're going in S tier. Also because there is a lot of dialogue in the games too. There's a lot of reading. You can also go, like, I think it's also fun. Like, I had fun with a lot of the Pokemon names when I was playing Scarlet, because there's a lot of like interesting puns and stuff that they're doing, and it was kind of like a very different way of learning or thinking of about Japanese, and I thought that was really cool. The game itself, it's a Pokemon game. But as far as like the Japanese aspect of it, I thought that it was fun in that regard. Okay, the Rezzies. Fortunately for this list, the Rezzies are all gonna go in the same place. I think they're all B tier. I think they're all B tier. I think the most difficult one, Japanese-wise, is probably Rezi 4, but I think I'll put them ahead of Crooked Weeb, though. Actually, I'll put him ahead of... You know, I'm gonna put him ahead of, like, all this shit. And the reason is because they have voice acting, which is good, and they have a good mix of casual Japanese as well as written Japanese. And there's dialogue for sure, but I think that, like, if we're talking motivation, and like, I think if you're playing games, like if you're playing games to learn Japanese, I think part of it is that you're doing that because you like video games, right? And sometimes you just want to play the game, you know, like, I get that. I feel that way on stream all the time. Like, sometimes I just want to play the game. And a game like Ace Attorney, for example, that's all text-based, essentially. You know, it's great for studying and learning Japanese, but it might not be as good for motivation. So I do think that having some, like, moments of reprieve from the language learning aspects can be good. And I think there's a good mix of that in Resident Evil 4, or the Resident Evils in general. But then again, ultimately, this is about learning the language, so we're not going to put them higher than A, just because they give you breaks, you know? But, like, I don't value that so much to put it in a higher echelon, but I think it's good for B tier, and I think it's good for top of B tier. All right, Sea of Stars. Sometimes you just want to go fishing, screw say, dude, exactly. Sometimes you're just like, speaking of fishing, fucking Sea of Stars, dude, I love fishing. I love catching me some big ass fish and then cooking that shit up over with delicious portraits of food, you know? That was good. That was good, wasn't it? I feel like it's around Omori. As far as teaching you Japanese, I think it's around the Omori tier. I think it's better because the font isn't so just like cringe, but the lack of voice acting, I don't remember why I put Crooked Man up in B. I think mostly because of similar reasons of, like, teaching you a very good amount of variety as well as repetition. Also is like one of the first ones I ranked, so whatever you're judging or like ranking stuff, the first couple ones are sort of like you're still establishing a baseline, framework. Moving on, Signalis. So Signalis, great game about lesbian space robots trapped in a sort of Silent Hill-esque world. This one, here's the thing. There's a lot of repetition of words, but it falls prey to a similar thing in Obra Dinn where like the word pool is fucked. Like the word pool, it's very hyper specific and technical. A lot of this game felt like reading like a technical manual of how to build an engine or something, and I think that its utility, the nicheness, I think it's in D tier. Yeah, I like it in D tier for teaching you the language. Okay, Sawyer. Sawyer is like here. Sawyer also suffers from the fact that the game itself is so fucking hard. That like it might be just discouraging in another way. And I know that's not what this is about. We're kind of assuming that you don't have any difficulty playing the game, but like, yeah, this game is hard, man. There is a lot of repetition though, because you play through different characters' stories and there is overlap of concepts and ideas and stuff like that. Because of that, I'm gonna put it in B tier. I'm gonna put it in B tier. I'm gonna put it right here. I'm gonna put it right here. Teleforum. I want to put this game in the bottom tier just because this game sucked. But it probably doesn't deserve that. I think it's my least favorite game I've ever played on this channel. But as far as teaching you Japanese, I think we can put it in low C. Okay, The Messenger. I feel like right next to Sea of Stars is probably a pretty good spot for it. Both Sea of Stars and The Messenger do suffer from the problem of being French, which is an issue. And what I mean by that is that the games have like, they're not originally in Japanese, and the translation is kind of a little like unnecessarily hard in a lot of places. All right, Vanguard Bandits. Vanguard Bandits, it's from this, a little bit past this era, but I think it like belongs in a similar, this is a C as far as teaching you stuff. It's just like, in a lot of ways, it's typical RPG language that it's kind of like, it's going to teach you RPG stuff really well. And if that's what you're down for, then that's great. There's not a lot of like, I don't think there's too much variety to it though. Okay, Woggle Tabi. This is going in S rank because actually, if we're taking difficulty out of the equation, I mean, this has got to be top, right? Like, this is a game that was made to teach you Japanese specifically. Let's move on to Kyofu no Sekai. Kyofu no Sekai, I'll be honest, I didn't play it too much. What I played though kicked the shit out of me. Hella hard Japanese, and damn near impossible fonts to read. Damn near impossible, I say. So hard. It is like, it was really tough. Now, it doesn't belong in the don't teach you shit thing category. This is good. It's written kind of like a novel, like a shousetsu. So like, in that regard, if that's your goal to read novels, I've read one collection of short stories in Japanese, and I read 1.5 Harry Potter books. And that's about all the reading I've done, as far as like novel reading in Japanese. I kind of feel like the font almost puts it down this level. One thing that I think it does do well though, or would do well if I played it more, is that like, because it's a roguelike, you're playing through similar scenarios multiple times, so you can really like rep out, like get those reps in of words, because they're gonna pop up, you know, the different scenarios are gonna have the same words and you're gonna be able to review them frequently. So I think that that's actually gonna bump it above like maybe some of these other ones. I think B tier is good. I think B tier is pretty good. It's meant to look retro. Yeah. It's totally intentional. It's meant to look retro, but goddamn, is the vision was executed brilliantly, but at what cost? I feel my own madness meter or my own sanity points getting attacked. In real IRL. Just from looking at the font. Maybe, I mean, part of this is also that I'm a scrub. But I do remember when I was playing the game, like, Japanese people that were in the chat were also were like, what the fuck is this font? They were like, yomirikui. You know, or like, font muzukashii. That was definitely Iwatatud in my chat. Okay, let's look at the Yakuzers. I think the Yakuzers are pretty great for teaching Japanese. I think they're pretty great. Like, I think that they have a wide variety of tango. There's a lot of repetition as well of the tango. Maybe not as much repetition as like could be useful, because a lot of the side quests maybe don't repeat as much tango. Yeah. You know? Like that. Pooty Koopy Koopy. Well, I forgot what it was. Pooty Koopa? Pooty Koopy? Yeah. That little cult that we infiltrated in Yakuza 0. Dude, that was such a sick side quest. Kuripika? Kuripika kana? Damn it, I can't remember it. Anyway, I think these ones are pretty great for teaching you Japanese. I'm gonna put them in A tier. But where? There's a lot of voice acting as well. I think they belong here. Probably ahead of Outer Wilds, just because of the variety that you can get out of it. But I think Octopath Traveler 2 does repetition better. Yeah. Okay, and then Duolingo. The music was like, fuck Duolingo. Just like cut out instantly. Fuck that owl. Fuck that Fukuro. I mean, it's not necessarily a game, but it's got to go at the top too. I should pause the music for dramatic effect. No, that just happened on its own. That was just great timing. In as far as Duolingo is a game, I think that it's got to be at the top, right? Like, if we're putting it as it's like it's gamified language learning enough to be considered a game, it's probably got to be at the top as far as actually teaching you shit, you know? Like, we could talk about how Duolingo, maybe as far as the language learning platform, is not as effective as other ones or effective as other things, but like, as far as actively trying to get you to learn shit, it does more to help you than any of these other games, you know? Oh, Shurepipi, that was it. Yeah. Shurepipi. It's on Twitch, has to be a game. Yeah, but I mean, so is like, I don't know, bathwater and babes or whatever categories. Hot tub, feet streams. Oh man, Twitch is such a weird place. Such a weird place. Duolingo's not actually efficient for learning, but if you have time to spare, it works. Yeah, I agree. I think the main thing that both like Waggletabby and Duolingo don't have, that all these other games have, is that like they're not necessarily immersive, right? Like if we're talking about whatever the values of immersion is, they don't really hit on that as much as these other ones, you know? It's also kind of like math. Like, I don't know if you had this experience when you were, you know, learning math, different levels, but like sometimes you would learn in class a particular procedure and how to do that procedure in a specific way. And then in the homework, there might be instances where you would come across a problem where you were like, well, I know what I'm supposed to do, but it doesn't feel like it works here, right? Because like there's other kinds of context and other principles that you have to draw from to properly understand and make the one you're studying work in the way that you want it to, right? You might have to do some operations before you can get to the operation that you've been practicing, whatever that might be. And I feel like that's kind of what Duolingo and Waggletabby don't necessarily do, just because there's so many variables that go into creating that kind of environment that like they don't necessarily do that, you know? Like you learn kind of like one way of using a word, or maybe like limited options of using a word, and then you go out into the wild, you play some games, and you're like, what the hell? They're like, I know this word, or I know these kanji, but I don't know what they like. What is this all together? Like, how does this fit? You know? So I think that is a drawback for both of these. I still think like you're going to actually actively learn more from these two than the other ones, but just some commentary. Dude, nasty guitar. Oh. Yeah. Love it. Okay. There it is, folks. That's the list right there. That's the ranking of all the games that we've played. That's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out the other videos that you can watch right here. Cut. End scene.